Welcome to the Architects of Society, a comparative analysis of the social contract theories of Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. These three philosophers offered distinct blueprints for building a stable society out of human nature, agreeing on the method of a social contract, but disagreeing on its foundation and structure. The project of the social contract defines the theoretical agreement where individuals surrender some natural freedoms to an authority. In exchange, this authority protects their remaining rights, essentially bridging the gap between the state of nature and civil society. Thomas Hobbes wrote Leviathan during the chaos of the English Civil War, driven by a fear of anarchy, seeking to justify absolute power. John Locke wrote two treatises of government to justify limited monarchy and the protection of individual rights. Jean-Jacques Rousseau wrote The Social Contract, rebelling against moral corruption and seeking to restore natural freedom. The foundation is the state of nature. For Hobbes, it's a state of war. Solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Locke saw it as a state of perfect freedom and equality, but with reasonable insecurity due to the lack of impartial judges. Rousseau viewed it as the noble savage, innocent, peaceful, and self-sufficient before corruption. The building blocks are their views on human nature. Hobbes saw humans as purely self-interested egoists, driven by fear and a desire for power. Locke viewed them as rationalists, capable of morality and reason, respecting others' rights. Rousseau believed humans are naturally good, motivated by self-preservation and pity, but corrupted by artificial institutions. Why sign the contract? For Hobbes, the catalyst is self-preservation, escaping the state of war and constant fear of death. For Locke, it is the preservation of property, as securing life, liberty, and estate requires established law and an impartial judge. Rousseau saw the serpent of property as creating inequality, and the contract is needed to restore moral liberty. The terms of surrender vary. Hobbes requires total surrender of all rights, unconditionally and irrevocably, to the sovereign. Locke demands partial surrender, retaining rights to life, liberty, and property, conditional on the government fulfilling its trust. Rousseau asks for total alienation of all rights to the whole community, obeying the general will. The edifice defines the sovereign. Hobbes' sovereign is the Leviathan, possessing absolute, indivisible power, and is not a party to the contract. Locke's sovereign is the trustee, limited by law, where supreme power remains with the people. Rousseau's sovereign is the general will, popular sovereignty, where government is merely an employee of the collective will. Rousseau's general will is the common interest or public good, distinct from the will of all, which is the sum of private interests. The paradox is that whoever refuses to obey the general will is compelled to do so by the whole body, meaning they are forced to be free. The result is liberty in the civil state. For Hobbes, it is the silence of the law, security overrides liberty. For Locke, it is freedom under law, liberty is the protection of rights under common laws. For Rousseau, it is moral liberty, obedience to a self-prescribed law that makes man master of himself. The right to rebel also differs. For Hobbes, rebellion is illegitimate, as it leads to the state of nature, or civil war. Locke argued rebellion is a right to appeal to heaven if the government violates its trust. Rousseau allowed perpetual change, where the people can revoke the government at any time, as it is an act of employment, not a contract. This comparative matrix summarizes the competing visions across key philosophical areas, from the state of nature to the consequences of conflict, highlighting the stark differences between Hobbes' security-focused, Locke's rights-based, and Rousseau's collective liberty frameworks. The architects left a lasting legacy. Hobbes influenced realism and strong executives. Locke provided the blueprint for liberal democracy, constitutionalism, and property rights. Rousseau influenced radical democracy, socialist thought, and concepts of direct democracy. All three shifted the source of political authority from the divine right of kings to the social contract. The power moved from the heavens to the consent of the governed, though their specific blueprints for this human artifact differed greatly. Historically, Hobbes' Leviathan, written during the English Civil War, argued that life without strong government is, quote, solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. This view influenced early American debates about the need for a stronger federal power. Today, Hobbes' core question remains relevant in debates about national security, executive power, and emergency authority. How much power must a government possess to ensure order? Consider this question. How did Thomas Hobbes' idea of a powerful central authority influence the framers' decision to create a stronger federal government under the Constitution? Locke's two treatises of government established natural rights to, quote, life, liberty, and property, adapted by Thomas Jefferson. Locke also insisted that government power derives from the consent of the governed. Locke's enduring impact is seen today in civil rights movements, voting rights protections, and constitutional challenges that uphold the principle that government exists to protect individual rights. Consider this question. In what ways did John Locke's concept of natural rights directly shape the Declaration of Independence? Rousseau's The Social Contract argued that legitimate government must reflect the collective will of the people. His concepts influenced the principles of republicanism and civic virtue, even in systems that do not adopt direct democracy. Rousseau's influence persists in modern public referendums, civic engagement initiatives, and the ongoing debates over how to balance majority rule against minority rights. Consider this question. How did Rousseau's idea of the general will influence democratic participation in early America? The U.S. Constitution blends Hobbes's need for order, Locke's emphasis on natural rights, and Rousseau's popular sovereignty. The system of checks and balances reflects a deliberate effort to achieve this balance. This philosophical balancing act continues today through political tensions concerning security versus freedom, federal versus state power, and the limits of majority rule. Consider this question. Why did the Founding Fathers blend Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau instead of following just one philosopher? All three agreed that government is a contract. If that government fails, Locke and Rousseau argued citizens have the right to alter or abolish it, emphasizing the reciprocal nature of the agreement. Modern debates on taxation, public health, and constitutional rights still revolve around the social contract's core question. What do citizens owe the government, and what does the government owe its citizens? Finally, consider this question. How does the social contract theory shape modern debates about government responsibility and citizen obligations?